Janelle Masters had never known hunger. Not the real kind, the one that gnaws at your insides and twists your mind into knots. Marble stairs, gold-trimmed mirrors, endless halls lined with portraits of unsmiling ancestors. This was the world she knew. Yet now, as dusk settled over Atlanta's most glamorous neighborhood, her own reflection in the window showed nothing but terror. Subscribe and hit like. Our powerful stories add years to your life. Join our Story Lovers Club and let us know in the comments, where are you listening from? Her mother, Desiree, poured a glass of wine, her hands steady even as her voice trembled in anger. You think this is how we raised you? Is this the life you want for your children, for our name? The words ricocheted around the dining room, slicing through what little was left of family peace. Janelle's children, Amara and Kofi, watched from behind her, wide-eyed and mute. They clung to the velvet folds of her skirt, not understanding why the air had turned so sharp, so cold. Her father, Reginald, stood by the fireplace in a suit as immaculate as his reputation. You've made your choices. There are consequences, Janelle. We can't help you anymore. Not when you refuse to help yourself. Janelle wanted to speak, to beg, to remind them that blood was supposed to mean something. But pride, heavy as a chain, kept her silent. Tears blurred her vision. "Get out!" Desiree hissed, voice breaking. "Go! Don't disgrace us further." They pressed a bag into her hands. Some clothes, a little cash, the hint of a prayer hidden in her mother's tightly folded letter. Janelle barely remembered gathering Amara and Kofi in her arms, stepping out into sticky summer rain, crossing the threshold into the glittering, unfriendly night. No one watched her go. No one wanted to see. On the sidewalk, headlights sliced through the darkness. The city she'd only glimpsed through rolled-up car windows stretched before her. Endless, humming, dangerous. Her silk robe clung to her skin, already sodden, already losing the warmth of home. Kofi whimpered in her arms. Amara's small hand squeezed hers, trembling. Janelle forced herself forward, the echo of her parents' final words ringing in her ears. Across the city, the lights gleamed like shattered glass, beautiful and sharp enough to bleed. For the first time, Janelle felt hunger, the hunger for hope, for safety, for one person to care. The mansion's doors had closed behind her forever. But somewhere, beyond the next traffic light, beyond the reach of her lost world, something was waiting. No one saw her go. The first night, Janelle hid beneath the awning of a shuttered bakery, rocking Kofi while Amara snuggled close. The city did not forgive trespassers. Sirens wailed somewhere distant. Neon spilled across cracked sidewalks. Every footstep sounded like a threat, every passing face a warning. By sunrise, hunger bloomed inside them. The coins in her bag felt pitiful. She spent most on a shared sandwich at a corner deli. Amara asked for more, her eyes hopeful. Janelle shook her head, her heart splitting. They watched well-dressed men and women step over their blankets, eyes averted, as though their misery might leap up and stain their expensive shoes. Day after day blurred by. Janelle searched for shelter, but one was full. Another said no room for families. She tried parks, benches, bridges. The city's grandeur was a mockery now. Gleaming towers kept their secrets high, far above her reach. Kofi's cough worsened. Amara grew silent and withdrawn, sucking her thumb for comfort. Janelle tried singing lullabies at night, her own voice thin and scared. She held her children and closed her eyes, listening for hope in the empty air. Rain came, drenched and shivering. She tucked her babies beneath an old newspaper. She clutched them tight, desperate for warmth, remembering stories her grandmother had told of how strength that grew in darkness. But every hour felt longer than the last. A man in a faded jacket passed by, tossing an orange peel at their feet. A woman muttered, "Disgusting shame," loud enough for Janelle to hear. The city had eyes, but no kindness. By the third night, she was stretched thin, muscles aching, knees bruised, nerves frayed. She counted her children's breaths in the shadows, praying none would fail. One Sunday evening, a group from a church offered hot chocolate and prayer. Janelle accepted both, but the warmth faded quickly, and the prayers couldn't fill her children's stomachs. She tried to keep her dignity as she asked for help, one hand clutching Amara, the other shielding Kofi. Eyes darting, always searching, never trusting. Would the world let her drown, or would a hand reach out? At dawn, Janelle sat by a playground, watching Kofi dig in the mulch for hidden treasures. Amara tugged at her sleeve. "Mommy, what's next?" Janelle did not know. Clouds hung low overhead, heavy with more rain, heavy with promise or threat. The city teetered on the edge of day, sunlight threatening to reveal every secret, every bruise. Somewhere, she believed, someone had to care. The alternative was unthinkable. That morning, beneath a leaden sky, Janelle noticed a man watching her from across the playground. He sat on a battered bench, a coffee steaming in one hand, a duffel bag at his feet. He could have been anyone, a threat, a busybody, even another soul swept away by the city. Instinct screamed caution, but exhaustion dulled her fear. The man rose and walked toward her. He was white, tall but ungainly, with lines at the corners of eyes that seemed kind despite their sadness. "Morning," he said quietly, giving her plenty of space. "My name's Peter." Janelle said nothing, clutching Amara to her. Kofi peeked out from behind her leg, his eyes huge and wary. Peter crouched down, keeping his hands visible. "I see you here most mornings," he continued, voice gentle. "You and your kids." He nodded toward the food truck rumbling to life by the curb. I get breakfast there sometimes. Would you like something to eat?" "For the little ones?" He glanced at her but didn't push. Janelle hesitated. The city had taught her hard lessons about favors and debts, about the dangers of misplaced faith. But then Amara's stomach grumbled audibly, and Kofi looked up at her, lips trembling with hope. She nodded, just once. Peter returned 10 minutes later with a bag. Toast, biscuits, eggs, cartons of milk and juice. He held it out at arm's length, then stepped back. "They're all yours," he said. "I'll just, sit over here." Amara dove into the food, cramming bread into her mouth with both hands. Goofy squealed softly for the orange juice. Janelle watched them eat, heart aching with gratitude and shame. After the children finished, Peter spoke again. "You don't need to thank me. Just, I was like you once. It's hard. People passing by and pretending not to see." Janelle met his eyes, really looked for the first time. She saw sincerity etched there, and something else, loneliness. They began to talk in fragments. Peter shared that he was from Kentucky, that he'd come to Atlanta after a divorce left him with nothing but his van and a box of old photographs. He did odd jobs, volunteered at a nearby shelter when he could. No home, but not hopeless. The next afternoon, Peter returned. This time, he brought a box of crayons and coloring books for the kids. Janelle watched Amara scribble with bright joy, her small body finally at ease. Peter made no promises. He did not ask for her secrets or offer salvation in a grand gesture. When Janelle asked him why he was helping, he just shrugged. Because people should. Over the next week, a ritual emerged. Sometimes Peter came with food, sometimes with gentle stories or new jokes for Kofi. He never spoke of Janelle's past, never pressed for details, just offered what little he had. Time, kindness, a sense of safety, without asking anything in return. But every favor has a cost. Or does it? Despite herself, Janelle began to trust this strange, gentle man. She watched the way he sat quietly with her children, his patience in their presence. For the first time in weeks, laughter returned, fleeting but real. Yet shadows lingered. The city had not forgotten them, nor, she suspected, had the pain she carried from home. Still in the dim flicker of Peter's battered flashlight, sitting on the playground mulch while her children colored dragons and stars, hope, small and stubborn, began to grow. It wasn't long before the world noticed them again. At dawn, a squad car rolled slow past their playground shelter. 2 officers, one stern and unmoved, the other softer, stepped out, asked questions. Names, reasons, ages. One eyed Janelle's bag, its worn seams. The children huddled close. The other scribbled notes, eyes darting to Peter, who stood at a distance, concern etched on his face. "We've had complaints," said the stern officer, his voice flat. "This isn't safe for children." Janelle protested, her words panicked and clipped. She explained how she was trying, that there were no open beds, how she'd done everything she could. But the officers were unmoved. "You'll need to come with us. Social services will sort this out." As they led her to the patrol car, Peter stepped forward, his manner unthreatening. "She's with me. We're just having breakfast. I volunteer at the shelter. Maybe I can help." The officers regarded Peter skeptically. "You're responsible for them?" Peter nodded, his voice steady, but tentative. "I can vouch for Janelle. She's just fallen between the cracks. The shelters are full. I checked myself last night. Please, let me talk to the caseworker at Mercy House. I know her. There's an overflow room. I'll stay with the family until there's space." He met Janelle's eyes, silently asking for her permission. Janelle, helpless in the glare of authority, nodded desperately. "Please," she said, "we won't cause trouble. We just need somewhere safe." After a tense quiet, the officers relented. Forms were filled, warnings issued. As Peter gathered Janelle's scattered belongings, one of the officers knelt down to Amara and Kofi. "You stick close to your mom, okay?" he said, his voice softer now. Together, the odd group walked several blocks toward Mercy House, a crumbling church converted to a haven for those with nowhere else to go. Peter led the way, holding Kofi's hand when the little boy's legs slowed, offering Janelle the gift of silent solidarity. Inside, the shelter director, a worn but determined woman named Sister Louise, listened to Peter's quick pitch. She eyed Janelle shrewdly as she checked her phone for available cots. "Overflow's not much," she warned, "and rules are rules, but families come first when we can." That night, the four of them shared a cramped dorm room, walls thin and air thick with the smell of laundry, worry, and hope. For the first time in weeks, Janelle slept deeply, unhindered by fear of the street. Amara curled up beside her, and Kofi slept at her feet, a borrowed stuffed bear in his arms. In the morning, sunlight slanted in through stained glass windows, painting patches of red and blue light across the faded floor. Janelle woke feeling almost like herself, her real self, strong and capable, if only for a moment. With Peter's help, she met a caseworker. They began the slow, bureaucratic process of finding temporary housing, medical care for Kofi, preschool for Amara. It was grueling. Progress measured in inches, not miles. Not every promise came true. There were forms to fill, queues to wait in, and sometimes doors still slammed shut. But by now, Janelle knew, against the current, you do not give up swimming. You endure. Each night, as her children drifted to sleep, Janelle whispered gratitude in the darkness for strangers who brought food, for Peter's unwavering kindness, for shelters with thin cots and hope enough to share. The city was still sharp and cold beyond the doors. Her old life, her parents' house and judgment, seemed another universe. But pressed close to Amara and Kofi, listening to Peter hum softly in the hallway outside, Janelle allowed herself to believe in the possibility of finding her own place in the world. A place built not on marble and silence, but on survival, courage, and grace. The hunger was still there, raw, honest, and real. But there was more to life than hunger. There was the will to keep going, and the hope that a block or two further, someone kind waited in the shadows, reaching out a hand. And that, Janelle thought as dawn crept in, would have to be enough. Weeks passed. The rhythm of shelter life seeped into Janelle's bones, a new kind of normal. She woke early to join the breakfast line, checked the job board, spoke quietly with social workers about forms and interviews and housing programs. Amara learned to play with the other children. Kofi's cough faded, and he giggled again, chasing dust motes and sunbeams. She found work, part-time, cleaning rooms at a nearby motel. It was hard and thankless, but her hands were strong, her resolve sharper than ever. Peter cheered her victories, large and small, though he insisted he was just passing kindness forward, not wanting praise. One afternoon, Sister Louise pulled her aside. "There's a spot at the transitional apartments. You and your children can move next week. It's not much, but it's yours." Janelle smiled, a real, unguarded smile, for the first time since leaving home. That night, she told Amara and Kofi about their new place. They made up a game, dreaming of paint colors, favorite foods, beds of their own. On their last night at the shelter, Janelle stood in the chapel after everyone had gone to sleep. She whispered a prayer, not for rescue, but for strength and for gratitude. She thought of all the people who had, in small ways, chosen not to look away. As she led her children out into the morning, bags gathered and hope stitched together, the city seemed gentler. The streets were just streets, not enemies. The shadows were fewer. Light glimmered on glass, promising new stories. Janelle was still afraid. The world was still hard. But now she was more than her fear. She was moving forward, step by step, holding Amara and Kofi close. Their dignity was something the city could not take, something she would protect at any cost. And in the heart of the city, a woman and her children walked with their heads high at last, carrying with them the memory of darkness, but more importantly, the proof that sometimes someone will care. The apartment was smaller than Janelle imagined, with chipped countertops and thin carpet, but sunlight poured in through the windows each afternoon. Amara made it her job to tape bright paper flowers to the walls, while Kofi claimed a corner for his growing collection of crayons and rescued toys. Janelle found a fragile sense of relief in the silence after dinner, listening to her children's voices echo. No longer watched I strangers, lessons bloom. No longer worried about the bitter wind or prowling eyes. The three of them danced in their faded socks on linoleum, laughing when the radio played old songs. She was careful with money now, counting out bills for groceries, saving coins for bus fare, jotting down every cent in a notebook. Peter visited sometimes, helping her assemble a sturdy shelf from second-hand wood. He always brought news about city jobs and a quiet word of encouragement. He never stayed long, yet Janelle missed his gentle company, knowing their paths might drift apart. As spring turned the city green, Janelle began to dream. She signed up for evening classes at the community center, parenting support, resume writing, and once a poetry group where she wrote about hunger, hope, and the secret strength she'd found in her children's smiles. Amara made friends in the courtyard, chasing bubbles with a little girl named Whitney. Kofi learned to say thank you every morning, and sometimes without prompting, I love you, in the hush before sleep. Dignity, Janelle realized, wasn't some grand prize, but 100 quiet moments. It was checking homework and tucking sheets tight. It was saying no when the world demanded surrender. It was her children singing in their small, safe home, They had only just begun to heal. But Janelle promised herself she would keep moving forward. One step, one day, one act of kindness at a time. She did not know what the future held. But for now, she watched the light fade gently from their living room window. And she was not afraid. Summer settled over the city, hot and fragrant with promise. Janelle's days filled with work and small chores, but they grew lighter each week. Amara finished kindergarten, and Kofi learned to ride a wobbly bicycle in the apartment courtyard. Routine shaped their lives, but hope colored its edges. Janelle sat at the kitchen table one evening, sorting through forms from the transitional program, the last step before permanent public housing. She felt the old anxiety stirring, but breathed slow, remembering Peter's advice to take each day as it came. At last, the phone call arrived. "You've been approved," said the caseworker, her voice threaded with real warmth. "Your lease starts next month. Congratulations, Janelle." "You've made it." Janelle let herself cry, relief and pride flowing together. She thought of her parents, her lost home, the shelter, Sister Louise, and all the faces that had passed her on the street. She wished she could thank every stranger who hadn't looked away. They moved together on a soft Sunday morning into their new apartment. It wasn't perfect, but it was theirs, a place filled with light, laughter, and the smell of fresh bread. Amara painted rainbows on her bedroom wall. Kofi planted beans in the window box, watching the slow miracle of green, as if it were magic. Peter stopped by on moving day, carrying groceries. He hugged the kids, nodded quietly to Janelle, and after a long moment, said goodbye. "You don't need me anymore," he said, smiling. "But I'm glad I was here." Janelle understood. Her journey was her own now, but she would never forget those who had walked with her through the coldest part of the night. As the sun set behind the city's towers, Janelle stood at the open window, listening to Amara's laughter and Kofi's quiet humming. She was not unchanged. The scars remained. Life was never so easy, never so simple. But she was home. And home meant possibility, patience, and the fierce love she had always carried. If ever the darkness came again, Janelle knew she would face it. Head high, heart open, dignity intact. And for the first time, she truly believed in her children's bright future, carried high on her shoulders as dawn broke in their new beginning.